Hi guys, what's up? This is LGS here and I'm back with a deck profile, and today I'll be doing my sort of first Legion deck profile, and I'll be doing it on the Genesis White Witches and, well, this Mint, and also the Eagle Witch. So, well, instead of going mainstream and making my own CEO deck, I decided to make a Witch deck because number one, it's cheaper, number two, it's more fun because everyone knows that CEO is OP. Yeah, CEO, regular CEO is OP. I don't have a CEO deck, but I know some of you want to see a deck profile on that. But I guess I can try, but I don't have it now. So hopefully one day I can get it, but I might be late. Like how I'm late for this deck. Anyway, so yeah. So with Legion, Genesis got two kind of Legions you can come up with. The Regalia as well as the Witches. And the Witches are pretty interesting because Witches, Shadow Paladin has Witches as well as Genesis. And it's quite interesting because a lot of people actually tried to come up with ideas of making a mixed deck, but this is a almost pure. This is a witch deck that is mainly focused on Genesis, but I do include some of the Shadow Paladin witch deck which can help this deck, which I'll show later. So for the starter, we will run. Hey, where's my starter? Oh, there you are. We run Regalia of Prayers, Prey Angel. So she's a very good card because 5k base, Forerunner, and you can use her to soul charge 3. So her skill is that if you're Vanguard Legion, put her in a soul and you soul charge 3. So you get free 4 souls just like that. I run her because she's quite consistent, unlike other decks where you must boost and hit soul charge 1 and other decks where that cost counter plus 1. But anyways, so that's starter. Next, for the grade 3s, we run, well, White Snake Witch Mint. So she is the sort of powerhouse for Genesis. So Genesis Witches kind of focus on blessing. So this one focused on gaining power, whereas the other witch, which is the Eagle, which I'll show later, focus on draw power. So her skill is that you can Soul Blast 6 and you give power to yourself as well as 2 rear guards in front, 2 witches in front. So your whole front row gets power up. She gains 10k and your 2 rear guards get 5k. I'll explain his skills in detail later on. So yeah, stay tuned. Next, I run the only other Genesis Witch, is the White Witch of Eagles, Fennel. So these are the only 2 witches for Genesis. So Legion witches for Genesis. So yeah, so her skill is useful early game to help you gain card advantage. So early game, you ride her, and ideally you want to ride her multiple times before you go on to Mint as a finisher. So early game, get hand size. Late game, just push with power. So for grade 2. We run 4 Black Snake Witch Shikori. So she is the 12k attacker for witches, and she's also the mate of your White Snake Witch. So run 4, pretty self-explanatory because you need the mate to do Legion, 4 of that. Next, grade 2, we run 4 of the White Golden Eagle, Jasmine. So she helps you to soul charge. So her skill is on call, soul charge 3, counter plus 1, yeah. And you run 4 because she's the mate of your other witch Legion, so Eagle Witch. So she's the mate. So run 4, pretty self-explanatory as well. Next, grade 2, I run 4 of the Witch of Ravens, Chamomile. So oh yeah, I forgot to mention that this deck you want to run as many witches as possible because her skill requires you to search for witch cards. So you can only draw cards with witch in its card name. So her skill is the only one with sort of witch restriction besides the 12k attacker. But yeah, so yeah, you want more witches. But she's also in there because she's a free +1. So if you soul blast her, you can counter +1 and call her from the drop zone. So you get a free call, save your hand. So this deck revolves around gaining advantage and all that. So next for grade 1, I run 3 of the Witch Genesis Perfect Guards and 1 of the Witch Quintet Wall. So this Quintet Wall is a Shadow Paladin Quintet Wall because Genesis has no Witch Quintet Wall. But who cares, man? I mean, some of you may be like, oh my gosh, it's a Shadow Paladin, you can't play it. Now, if you noticed, from set 16 and EB 11 onwards, basically for the Legion era onwards, Perfect Guards no longer have the clan restriction. So you can actually run Perfect Guards in any deck regardless of clan. So you can also run this Witch Perfect Guard in the Shadow Paladin Witch because she is the Only Genesis has a perfect guard for witches. Shadow Paladin doesn't have, so you can run her in Shadow Paladin deck if you are OCD about witch, which I am. I'm kind of OCD about witches, so I run the Witch Quintet Wall from Shadow Paladin instead of running the Genesis Quintet Wall, because I want my deck to be full of witches, which is nice. Follows the theme. Next we run 4 Witch of Rocks Melissa. Her skill is exactly the same as her skill, so we run her because number 1 she's a witch, number 2 you get free calls. Although these 2 cards are old, so they have the restriction of you must have Genesis Vanguard. Next I run 3 cards. This is the Shadow Paladin Witch, but Witch of Precious Stones, Dana. So she curse. So when you call her, swap +1 and you swap an opponent's rear guard with a grade 0 from the drop zone. So essentially you curse their opponent's rear guard to be grade 0. So I run 3 because she's a fun card and it's nice to tag a Shadow Paladin Witch into this Genesis Witch deck. But if you are very OCD and you want this to be fully Genesis, you can swap her out for the next card, which is the 10k attacker for Witch, or you can swap her out for Witch of Cat's Cumin. So Witch of Cat's Cumin is on call, so charge 1. So when you call her out, so charge 1. So you can, if you don't want to run the Shadow Paladin Witches, swap her out for this or more of her 10k attacker. So next for the triggers, I run 12 crits. Yes, 12 crit deck, because why not? 12 crits is the way to go, my friend. And 4 heals. Okay, you want to have the Witch heals and the Witch crit. These two are this is from BT10 and this is from Genesis Trial deck. But if you build this deck, I highly recommend running 4 Witch crit and 4 Witch heals, because as I mentioned, her skill requires you to search for Witch to put in your hand. So you want to improve your chances of drawing cards with her skill, so you want to run Witch triggers. So now I'll explain the skills in detail, and I'll have some discussion about why I run some cards and how many I run. So first is Mint. Her skill is first skill basically perform Legion. So for those of you who don't know, to perform Legion is both of you and your opponent must be at grade 3. Then you send 4 cards from your drop zone into the deck, okay? And then search your deck for her mate and perform Legion. So her mate is the White Witch of Black Snake Witch Chicory. Perform Legion. Her Legion skill is auto, okay? When this unit attacks a Vanguard, okay, and she is in Legion, meaning she has been Legioned, you can Soul Blast 6. If you Soul Blast 6, she gains 10k, and the witches in your front row gain 5k each. So that's why you want to run as many witches in this deck as possible, because she gives power boost only to witches. So she gets 10k, and your rear guards witches also get 5k. Her third skill is an activate skill, only main phase. So Counter Blast 1, if you have another unit with witch in its card name in the same column, okay, you can Counter Blast 1 and Soul Touch 3. You can only do it once a turn. So this skill can only be used once a turn. So once a turn, if she is by herself and you have a witch booster, or if she has been Legion, so you have a witch in the same column, Counter Blast 1, Soul Touch 3. So yeah, so her skill requires you to Soul Touch 6. So if you start from 0 soul, you must wait 2 turns to use a skill. So yeah, but anyways, this deck has ways of... This deck, you gain soul very easily, so it's not a problem. Soul is not really a problem with this deck. So next you have the Witch of Eagles, Fennel. So her first skill is Legion, so perform Legion with this person, so you Legion. And her skill is on the turn, okay, at the end of the battle that this unit attack Vanguard, during the turn that this unit perform Legion. So her skill is only once off, you can only use it once, only on the turn she perform Legion. After that, she's just a vanilla Legion that swings for 20k. So on the turn that you perform Legion, after the battle that this unit attack a Vanguard, Soul Blast 3, check the top 5 cards from your top of the deck, search for 2 witches and add it to your hand. So, where is it really good? You Soul Blast 3 to draw 2 cards, which is very very good. You plus 2, so good. But sadly, it's only once a turn. So ideally, you want to use her early game, and you want to keep riding her over and over again, so that you perform Legion. So in a game, you can potentially use her skill 2 or 3 or even 4 times, because when you ride her, perform Legion, attack, Soul Blast 3, draw 2 cards. So, which is really good. So early game, use her, gain advantage. Late game, use her, finish off your opponent with powerful attacks. So her third skill is Auto. When she is placed on Vanguard, basically when you ride her, Counter Blast 1, Soul Touch 3. So essentially, her skill alone is equivalent to Counter Blast 1, draw 2 cards. Because when you ride her, Counter Blast 1, Soul Touch 3, Legion, attack. After attack, draw 2 cards. Pretty good. Next is your 12k attacker. So she's basically, if you have Witch Vanguard, she gains 3k when she attacks. Next is the Maid of the Eagle. So her skill is that when she is placed on a rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Witch in its card name, so she only works in a Witch deck. Counter Blast 1, Soul Touch 3, and she gains 3k at the end of turn. So on the turn you call her, Counter Blast 1, she is a 12k attacker for that one turn, and you Soul Touch 3. Generally, I don't really use her skill because I want to save my Counter Blast for other things like these witches, because you can easily get 3 souls for her skill and 6 souls for her skill easily without needing to use her skill, because her skill is. But if you somehow need souls, you can just call her out and use her skill, because I'd rather save her as guarding shield or to use it as Legion partner for this, because as I mentioned earlier, you want a Legion when you want to ride her as many times as possible early game and Legion multiple times. So you definitely need multiple copies of her in your drop zone or in the deck to Legion, so that you can draw 2 cards for free. And yeah, so yeah, you can actually call her, so charge 3, intercept off, and all that. So next is the Witch of Ravens. So she's a very good card because her skill is when this unit is placed in a drop zone from your soul, basically when you Soul Blast her out, Counter Blast 1 and call her to rearguard circle. So she is useful to get free pluses. And I'll explain later on some little nifty tricks you can use with her and her, which is quite fun, so I'll explain later. Starter, I've explained earlier, if your Vanguard is in Legion, put her in a soul, Soul Touch 3. So there you go, 4 souls, there you go, you have 4 souls already. And if you add grade 1, 2, that's 2 souls plus 4, you have 6 souls. So by the time you ride her, if you ride her first and you Legion, you would have 6 souls by then, because grade 1, grade 2, her, and 3, that's 6 souls. So yeah, so this deck doesn't have any issues having enough soul for your Vanguard skill. So for grade 1, everyone knows what Contempt Wall is. When you call the Guardian Circle, Counter Blast 1. When you call from your hand to Guardian Circle, Counter Blast 1, reveal top 5 card as Guardians. That's it. So you guard with 5 cards. And next is the Witch of Frogs, same skill as Melissa. Chamomile, sorry. Same skill as Chamomile. When you Soul Blast her out, Counter Blast 1, call her out. So if you have both of them in your soul, all you need, and you don't need to call any rearguards. So just Soul Blast both of them out, you get a free column. And also you can potentially do some late game tricks where you have multiple attacks, which is very good. Next is the Witch of Precious Stones, so she's a Shadow Piling Witch. So when you call her to rearguard circle, Soul Blast 1, and then you choose one of your opponent's rearguard, then your opponent chooses a grade 0 from the drop zone and replaces that rearguard with it. So basically what you do is you call, let's say your opponent, you choose your opponent's rearguard, so he then chooses a grade 0 from the drop zone and replaces it with that. So then your opponent now has a grade 0 on the field. Dang, dang, dang. So yeah. Next is the tanky attacker for witches. So as I mentioned earlier, this deck is mostly about gaining advantage. So use her to draw, use these 2 to get free calls, and yeah, late game, swing with powerful attacks. So here is a really good situation. So your ideal ride for turn 1 is ride her and then ride her. That way you have both of them in your soul, because you want them both in your soul, which is really good because you have free calls. So here is some little tricks you can do with your final turn push. You have this, and then you have, where is that card? This in your soul. And then you have 2 Counter Blasts available to use. Okay? And then you have her in Legion. Okay, so what do you do with this turn? How would you attack? Since the thing is, this deck runs 12 crits, so there's no stand. But how would you attack in this turn if you have a situation like this? The good thing is, attack with 1 column first. Even though her skill is only activates when she attacks. So her skill can only activate when you attack. So only when she attacks does she give power to the front row. But right now you attack with an unpowered column. Okay, attacked for 70k. Then next you attack with your Vanguard. Soul Blast 6, including these 2 witches. Okay. Now her skill activates. She gains 10k. Witches in front row get 5k. But you just Soul Blast these 2 out. Now use their skill. Counter Blast 2. Call them out on over here. And you have a full column now ready to attack. And she has a 5k power boost. Then you attack with this. So that's now 21k column, power column. And now you have another 23k power column. But let's just say you have a very good situation where somehow, ideally, you have 2 of each of them in your soul. Okay, and then you have 4 counter blasts available to use. So another reason why I don't use counter blast skills like her skill to soul charge or her skill to soul charge is because I want to conserve counter blast for these witches to get free calls. So on this turn when you want to push, you have a field like this. Okay, and then you have all of them in the soul. What you can do is you can do this: attack, attack, attack with a Vanguard, Soul Blast all of this out, Counter Blast 4, call them out here, here, and here, and here, and now you have 2 more full columns to attack with. And they are both, and now her skill activates, they both gain 5k, 21k, 21k columns. So in this turn alone, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attacks. And the attacks get progressively more powerful because the first column attack is like, the first 2 attacks will just be normal columns. The third attack by Vanguard is going to be 30 something power, and your last 2 will be 21k. So this is a very good push. And you gain free units as well as free attacks. But of course, you know, this is an ideal situation. It doesn't always happen. But having at least 1 column refresh with this method of having her in a soul and all that happens quite often. So yeah. So, yep, that's the late game push. Oh yeah. So, and as I mentioned, early game, right her. Legion, Legion, Legion. After attack, draw 2 cards non-stop. And her skill requires witches. That's why I say run witch heals and run witch crits, because that way you have high chances of drawing witch cards into your hand. And sometimes, you know, it's okay to draw into your triggers, because even though you have less triggers in your deck, but having triggers in your hand is a 10k shield, which is good for guarding. And after you guard, you can always shove them back in the deck when you Legion. So yeah. So now with Legion's ability to shove triggers back in the deck, it's not really a bad thing to draw triggers or to soul charge triggers, because you can always put them back in the deck. So yeah, so that is my Genesis White Witch deck profile. I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys understand how this deck works. And it's kind of a fun deck. You know, it revolves around generating advantage and hitting hard at end game, at the end of the game. So if you guys have any questions or comments, do let me know down below. If you like this video, thumbs up. If you like my content, do subscribe. And thanks for watching. This has been LJS, and I'll see you guys next time.